What is a conditional sentence? A conditional sentence is one that gives a condition and then the outcome of that condition in the main clause. So here's an example. If it snows, that's the condition, the game will be cancelled. That's the main clause and that's the outcome of the condition occurring. Now there are four types of conditional sentence. There's the zero conditional, the first conditional, the second conditional, and the third conditional. So let's have a look at each type in turn. Let's start with the zero conditional. This expresses something as a fact. So let's look at an example and the structure of the zero conditional. If you snooze, you lose. So in the if clause we have if plus the simple present tense, and in the main clause we have the simple present tense. Here are some more easy examples. If you sleep, you dream expresses something as a fact. If you think you can, and if you think you can't, you are right. Another example of the zero conditional. Next, let's look at the first conditional. This states the result of a possible future event occurring. Let's look at an example and the structure. If he finds the diamond, he will celebrate. So the if clause is the same, if plus the simple present, but this time we have will in the main clause, so will plus the verb. Let's look at some easy examples of the first conditional. If you get some sleep, you will feel better. If I like a food, even if it's bad for me, I will eat it. So in all of these examples, the if clause is in blue. Next, let's look at the second conditional. This states the result of an unlikely event occurring or an untruth being true. More on that in a second. Let's look at an example and the structure. So, for the second conditional, in the if clause, it's if plus the simple past tense. Now I'm going to say the simple past tense, but actually it's the past subjunctive, but they're very, very similar. And if you want to know about the subjunctive mood, then we have a page on that in Grandmonster. In the main clause, it's would plus the verb. So if she knew the answers, she would pass. That's the structure of the second conditional. Let's have a look at some easy examples. If you became an insomniac, you would understand. That's an unlikely event occurring. If you were an insomniac, you would understand. That's an untruth being true. So they're very similar ideas, but they're slightly different. Next, let's look at the third conditional. This states how the situation would be different with a different past. Let's look at an example and the structure. So, with the third conditional, if I had seen the camera, I would have smiled. So in the if clause, it's if plus the past perfect. In the main clause, it's would have plus the past participle. So I would have smiled is the past participle of to smile. Let's look at some easy examples of the third conditional. If you had slept last night, you would have beaten your record. Remember, this states how a situation would be different with a different past. If I had known how hard it would be to do something new in the payments industry, I would never have started PayPal. That's a quote from the founder of PayPal. You don't always have to have an if in the if clause, although that's a convenient name. Really, it's an adverb of condition, but we're going to keep calling them if clauses because it is convenient. So, an if clause can be introduced with other terms such as when, unless, provided that, and as long as, or by using inversion. So by inversion, what I mean is, instead of saying if I were rich, you would say were I rich. Okay, let's look at some examples with the alternatives to if. I will swim unless the water is too cold. I will swim as long as the water is not too cold. So as you can see, you don't always have to have an if in the if clause. There's another point, the mixed conditional. Occasionally, a conditional sentence will steal the structures from two different types of conditional sentences. Let's have a look. If we were smarter, that's the structure of the second conditional, we wouldn't have set off in this weather. That's the structure of the third conditional. Now this mixed conditional is used when there's a regret for a past action or past inaction. Okay, so why should you care about conditional sentences? When the if clause is at the start, it's usual to put a comma after it. So if I were white, I could capture the world. But look what happens when the if clause is at the back. I could capture the world if I were white. This time there is no comma separating the if clause from the main clause. Now that isn't exactly a rule, but it will see you right in the vast majority of situations. Here are some other things to look out for with conditional sentences. Be careful not to use the wrong tense in one of your clauses. So, for a zero conditional structure, be careful not to use the first conditional in the main clause. So when dogs die, they will go to doggy heaven. This is wrong. When dogs die, they go to doggy heaven. States it as a fact, zero conditional. A similar mistake can also occur with the second conditional structure. If you become an insomniac, you would understand. No, in the second conditional, it's the past tense in the if clause. If you became an insomniac, you would understand. It can also happen with the main clause. If you became an insomniac, that's fine. You will understand. No, it should be you would understand, because that's the structure of a second conditional. Let's summarize. A conditional sentence is a sentence that gives a condition and the outcome of the condition occurring. For example, if you snooze, that's the condition. You lose, that's the outcome. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out some of our other videos on grammarmonster.com, and we're also on Twitter and Facebook.